We will go ahead and reconvene the August 13th meeting of the Ames Community School District Board of Directors. Thank you everyone for being patient with us as our work session with OP and our architects went a little long. I will go ahead and start by reading our statement on our discussion items and public forum. Residents of the district, students attending the district, parents or guardians of students attending the district, and district staff members may address the board about any topic relevant to the district, whether on the current agenda or not. Those who wish to speak must sign up at the beginning of the meeting. Speaker participation is limited to 3 minutes once per item. The views and opinions of citizens addressing the board do not necessarily reflect those of the board, district administration, or staff. Speakers are to remember that Iowa law prohibits the board from discussing specific employees, students, or their performance. Student speakers will state their name and school. Others will state their name and address. And our first discussion item this evening is an update from the Ames Education Foundation and Annie Arbuckle.
Thank you for having me on the agenda. It's good to be here. So tonight I have an Ames Education Foundation update, and with that summary of gifts to the district this past fiscal year. I'd just like to start with, for those of you that don't know, our mission statement. The Ames Education Foundation, established in 1989, we provide financial support for innovative educational projects not ordinarily provided through the district's operating budget. So the key word there, innovative, and I'd like to talk about just briefly mention what our signature or core programs are. Innovation grants, and that we renamed to match with our mission statement. It used to be formerly known as the mini grant program. So we have the innovation grants, and these help teachers with the need they may have in the classroom. Our other core program is SOS, which stands for Support Our Students. And I'll give you a little bit more detail on that program, as that's an active campaign right now. Leveled Readers is something the foundation has helped with for the last 5 to 6 years. And over that course of time, we have raised approximately $50,000 to help the K through 5 grades. The money that is raised for that is split up amongst all the elementaries evenly, so it's evenly divided amongst Edwards, Fellows, Meeker, Mitchell, and Sawyer. Planned Giving program is our legacy program. This is where I spend a greater percentage of my time working with this. We have gifts that we establish through wills and estates. So for example, this summer we have had 2 wills in probate. An example of an estate gift that we have received before, we received through an estate gift all new hurdles that went the whole perimeter of the track for our student athletes. Ways we can receive gifts through our planned giving is through IRA rollover donations, retirement asset gifts, or gifts of stock. And we do work with stock quite a bit. You will see when I do the summary report that some of the dollar amounts end in some cents where it's uneven, and that may be just to how the stock may liquidate or what its cash value is at the time. Major gifts, we work with major gifts that help many different areas of our curriculum, and I can give you some examples of those as I show you one of these next slides. Planned gifts are very important for legacy and very important for the future of our education and our buildings. Planned gifts can be planned for the future, or they can be something that we plan as a major gift that's something a donor may want to do at a current time to help something that we have in need. Charitable gift annuity, this is one of the offerings that we have, and we are one of the first K through 12 K through 12 foundations nationally to be able to offer a charitable gift annuity. Again, our planned giving program provides legacy gifts for the future, and that includes endowments, so long-term planning and long-term gifts. Just this slide just gives just a brief overview of gifts and some of our projects accomplished. Those top three up there, you see innovation grants, SOS, and the leveled readers. Those are some of our core things that we're continually helping to fund and help the district with. The next one you see on there is technology. Through the first 3 years of TASTE, we were able to raise enough for technology to provide technology for 60 classrooms and completely equip Ames High with technology. We also started a technology endowment for Ames High. This is very important for future needs. It's a need that is probably not going away and that we will always have. Band instruments, we continually have donors donating to band instruments, and we help with that. We also have a band instrument endowment. Band uniforms is one of our past accomplishments where we raised $176,000 for new band uniforms. This fall will be the second year that the uniforms will be able to be utilized by our student musicians. Math, you will see in the upper right-hand corner of your slide some of our folks from the math department. In the upper right corner, that's Mark Jurgensen. He would be the head of the math department. And just this spring received some specialty calculators that is needed for their department for students to be able to use higher level calculators as well as do higher level calculating. And that is from a special endowment that we have. Choir robes, our foundation, within the past couple years, we were able to take those 30-year-old choir robes and magically turn their color from red to school colors, and we raised $60,000 to help those choir students in the choir program. The College Ready program is something we helped with just this last spring, where we helped with accommodations, transportation, ACT vouchers, helping with students that may fall into a category of financial need to be able to take the ACT test. So this was our ACT College Ready program. AHS Social Studies, within the past year and a half, we were able to help social studies at Ames High with a private donor that came forward and donated all new pull-down maps for all of our social studies rooms. So the maps do not have holes in them, and they're accurate. There's been changes since those maps were originally installed. We do help all the grades, I like to say, and this last spring we helped with kindergarten books. So each new kindergartner that we have coming to Ames this year, they all received a new book, and I believe it was at their kindergarten preview, they received a new kindergarten book, so that helped every kindergartner, all the schools, Edwards, Fellows, Meeker, Mitchell, Sawyer, and that book was The Night Before Kindergarten, and that's one of our eager readers right there, getting that book for the first time. I want to take time to just briefly explain SOS. For those that are new to this, SOS stands for Support Our Students. It's an educational supply program. It's implemented with respect. The foundation believes every student deserves the opportunity to be prepared for school, and students arrive to class prepared. We lead the nation in how we implement this, as we're not just mindlessly handing over a brand new backpack every year, but we've made it educational, where the students receive, they're part of a voucher program, they receive the receipt, they go through the purchasing process, they're able to make that decision for themselves on which color folder they might want. Again, they can show up to class prepared like their classmates. One student's parent came to me, and it's something I had not thought of as a side effect, but said, "Thank you for giving me and my student a memory." So I like to just highlight SOS because we have been actively hard at work with this spring, this summer, And we hope to have a very nice check to present to Dr. Anthony Jones at the teacher kickoff for this program, so he can go forward and his school counselors can have that for their implementation with that program. Innovation grant, I want to break this down just a little bit. Innovation grant helps the classrooms, and it helps the grade levels PK through 12, and it helps all of our buildings. Innovation grants typically are around $500. About a year ago, we implemented the High Impact Award. That goes for $1,000, and we like to try to do 3 awards of this. So one at $1,000 award at the elementary level, $1,000 award at the middle school level, and $1,000 award at the high school level. And we've tried to turn that into a competition. We also have the Filament Innovation Grant. What makes this a little bit different is this is an endowment. But it does help the classroom, PK through 12. Teachers apply for this at the same time, and I give those instructions at the teacher kickoff meeting. And one thing that does make this unique is based on the gift contract that was set up when the Filament Endowment was established, is that student council makes the decision. They always say pictures are worth 1,000 words, so I'd just like to show a few pictures behind some of these grants. These are the High Impact Award recipients for this past year. The first one there on the left is Ames Middle School. That's Steph Shares, and she actually received 2 awards. She received not only the High Impact Award, she also received the Filament Award. And her awards are helping writing, and it's a literary award, but it's helping literacy. The elementary award there went to a team, and this was a team at Fellows. And I'm going to just grab my names here so I refer to them correctly. So we have Lindsay Ritchie. She helped author that grant, along with her teammates from 3rd grade that will be able to utilize what she received with a High Impact Grant. And those team teachers with Lindsay are Chris Tibben, Joelle Vertinen, and Gina Isebrands. Our high school recipient for art was, and it wasn't specifically an art award, it's just that she is our art teacher. So she'll utilize her High Impact Award. That's Shelley Hassebrock. And she teaches a photography class, so her grant was written with some needs she had for photography. So it was really kind of nice to highlight our art at Ames High. They do really, really neat things. What you see on the screen there is a high school recipient, Lindsay Weedy. She received the Filament, and her award was for a guest artist. This was something that was decided by the student council, and she will be actually using this award, taking the benefit of that award this coming year. She'll receive a guest artist with what she's doing with her art curriculum. Dana Goodwin, he is a physical education teacher at Ames Middle School, and he also received a Filament Award. This was decided by student council, and in his grant he is receiving some things he basically needs replaced, and when the student council realized they were probably part of the ones that wore out some of that equipment, they thought maybe that was important, that they could, the middle school students behind them could receive that. So let's take a look at these decision makers. I work with the student council each year, and I help them, I spend a day with them on a class on making a financial business decision and what it's like to, they get a certain amount of money, and then they have to start deciding who, what, why should be receiving the money and why. So these were our decision makers from 2017-18. And every year, these students have always done an excellent job with their decisions, and they never cease to amaze me on their decision-making and how it differs from, a professional group we have looking at the other innovation grants, some of the things they think of that adults might not think of, so they do a great job. I'd now just like to read to you a summary of the gifts to the district, and again, this is for last fiscal year. So for SOS, a check went to ACSD in the fall, August 2017 for $9,000. In August 2017, band uniforms, $467.30. In August, check to Edwards for leveled readers for $1,000. In August to Fellows, check for leveled readers for $1,000. In August to Meeker for leveled readers, $1,000. In August to Mitchell for leveled readers, $1,000. In August 2017 to Sawyer, leveled readers, $1,000. In September 2017 to Ames High for a special needs classroom that we had, $500. In September 2017, this was for Ames High. This was some specialty supplies for some at-risk students, $200. In September 2017 to Ames High, to our debate club, $1,730. In the spring of 2018 to Northwood, Innovation Grant, $388. In the spring 2018 to Edwards, Innovation Grant, $369. In the spring 2018, Fellows, Innovation Grants, and this included a high impact, $4,096. In the spring of 2018, Meeker, Innovation Grants, $1,410. In the spring of 2018, Mitchell, Innovation Grants, $1,000. In the spring 2018, Sawyer, Innovation Grants, $1,365. In the spring 2018, Ames Middle School, Innovation Grants, and this includes the high impact recipient, $6,200. In the spring of 2018, Ames High School, Innovation Grants, including the high impact, $3,042. In the spring of 2018 at Ames Middle School, Finn Milliman Innovation Grants, $1,300. In the spring of 2018, Ames High, Finn Milliman Innovation Grant, $200. March 2018, Ames High School Math Department Calculators, $2,660. March 2018, Ames High School Speech Club, $450. May 2018, Ames High School Band Instruments, $9,734.39. June 2018, a check to Ames Community School District for the kindergarten books, $1,225. I'd also like to thank Barb Peterson for her organization with the kindergarten books and getting those out to those schools. The total then for the summary of the gifts to the district was $50,336.69. The innovation grant recipients at Ames High included Melissa Carlson, Ginny Seibert, Vicki Hales received 2 awards, Lindsay Weedy, Shelley Hasbrock, and that was the High Impact Award, Kendra Kraus, and she wrote a team award which helped not only her classroom, but then was a benefit for teachers Ian Beechler, Dan Flannery, Sonia Hayes, and Ben Matthews. Innovation grant recipients at Ames Middle School included Diana Sheldon, Ellen Grimm, Jessie Von Barron, Dana Goodwin, R.J. Voss, Cheryl Robson, Drew DeYoung, Steve McCrae, Steph Shares, again that's 2 awards plus the high impact. I want to take a moment to say one thing unique Steph did. She actually had some students help write the grant. Very innovative. So it was kind of neat to see that just so they could be part of that process. Also for the middle school, continuing on, we include Rachel Crofta, Sarah Davison, Jennifer Gabrielson, she's from Team M. She wrote a grant that would then help her and 3 of her team teachers. Allison Martins-Knoll, she received 1 on her own, and then Allison Martins-Knoll then wrote 1 for Team S, which was the benefit for herself as well as the people on her team. Innovation grant recipients at the elementary and Northwood, our early childhood center or pre-K building. Elementary recipients were Lisa Grote, Michelle Mathias, Andrea Mattingly, Lisa Rollins, Erica Westbrook, Kirsty Minion, Lindsay Ritchie, and that's the high impact, helping her as well as her teammates Kristen Tibben, Joelle Vertinen, Gina Isabrands, Camille Helgeson, Robin Rierson, Sarah Bappy, Chris Versteek, Mark Royer, Lori Olk, she received 2 awards, Christy Franco, Alice Pewick, Emily Konecki, and at Northwood, Krista Hewitt, she wrote a grant that will also help her classroom, but benefits the Northwood team that she works with. This picture on the screen just shows you a few of our innovation grant recipients. Top left, that's Ames Middle School, Jessie Von Barron. In the middle, our PE teacher at Edwards. Far upper right corner, our math teacher out at Ames Middle School. Bottom left, our music teacher, Chris Versteek at Sawyer. And over on the right-hand side, Andrea Mattingly, and I think the sign on her door sums it up with education, prepare your minds for action. Good sign she has there. The teacher we have on the screen here, this is Jennifer Gabrielson, and again, her award helped Team M. I'd like to just mention that we have a signature event. It's called Taste for Education. If you take the acronym TASTE, it's Teachers and Students Together for Education. This is a fun event. It's Sunday, September 30th. It's held at the Gateway, and it's at 5 o'clock. And I'd just like to remind people about this event because it is, it's a great fundraiser. It's also a good way to learn about what's going on in our education. It also helps us raise a good amount of finances to help fund these innovative things going into the classroom. This is just a flyer that some of you may have seen around. Again, the event is September 30th. Tickets are available now. They're available online at ameseducationfoundation.org. They're available at Chocolaterie Stom. And very soon, the Ames High main lobby will have tickets there as well. So we celebrate an evening of education. There are restaurants around the perimeter of the ballroom. There is music that evening with a jazz pianist who's out of Chicago, as well as ISU Shy of a Dozen performs, and silent auction that you can look at some stuff, and if there's something that appeals to you, which there's something for everyone, it's a good time and a good evening. So try to put that on your calendar for September 30th. We do thank all of the businesses and all of the donors that have been supporting Taste for Education and their ongoing support over the years and this year. And I would just like to share this photo. This is an innovation grant, or I should say a teacher in action. This is Mitchell Elementary, Erica Westbrook. And Erica is busy with, she received an innovation grant, and she is in the process of showing kids in her art class how to do a self-portrait. This is a key part of learning and personal development, help building self-esteem. Kids are learning drawing. Kids are learning to look at one another, look at their own eyes. They're learning about not only themselves, but others and looking at faces. Great for self-esteem and a key part of learning. And I was very taken with how she was showing the students how to do a self-portrait. It wasn't just, here's a crayon and paper. She was, if you look at that picture on the far right, she has her hand across her face, the middle of her face. She is showing them how to break it down into, you know, segments and really take a look in fine detail. So it was quite interesting. And this teacher in action, this is money from Taste for Education went right back into this classroom. Again, this is Mitchell Elementary. I want to compliment Erica Westbrook on what she did with that art classroom. I often do get asked this question, where do I send a donation? So I would like to provide this information this evening. If you are sending a check, it can be made out to Ames Education Foundation. Checks can then be mailed to P.O. Box 1125, Ames, Iowa 514. Donations may also be made online at ameseducationfoundation.org. I sincerely thank all the donors who have helped with many of our programs, helping with SOS, innovation grants, and our entire planned giving program, scattering kindness with funds, and helping Ames Education Foundation. So I thank the community for their support for these children and students in our Ames schools. So thank you.
Thank you, Annie. Any questions from the board for Annie?
No, I just want to tell Annie, thank you. Thank you for the presentation. Thank you for what you do. We are lucky to have you in our community for what you've done. The foundation is one of the biggest ones for what you've done with the, annuities and things like that. So thank you. I really appreciate you.
I want to echo Director Colton's comments. I met with you several times, and I'm just always very impressed with your organization and the passion that you have for this work and the amazing gifts that you facilitate the donors being able to provide our students. I mean, we really couldn't do what we do as a school district without the impact of the Education Foundation. I just want to thank you very much.
Annie, I'd like to also not only thank you, but also your board members and all the wonderful donors that participate in your various programs, come to the taste. I know that's a great event. I look forward to it every year. But really, it's the donors that step forward and support everything that you're doing, and I'd like to thank them.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks for presenting, Annie. We appreciate all your work. Any comments from the public?
I would just like, I don't know.
There
Gail
you
Seiler,
go.
420 Briarwood Place. Impressive work, impressive array of awards given. I would just like to maybe suggest, and maybe this is being done, but I don't know, perhaps suggest or wonder how criteria around equity and diversity and meeting this district's goals of reducing the disparities is considered in the allocation of the funds for the grants. So just something to put in there. And again, maybe it's being done, but I would be interested to make sure that it's being considered in some way. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, moving on to the next item on the agenda, retirement incentive for employees. Chris Stemslund.
I kind of got this one by default this year. Dr. Taylor always worked with Carol Huntermark in my office on revising this each year. Carol and I sat down with Ms. Reisner to kind of explain what early retirement plans in Iowa were and what the statutory requirements were, and we kind of came to a consensus on what to present this year. I gave a little bit of a recap just for the members that are new to the board, that Iowa Code Section 279.46 does allow school districts to have the authority to implement a retirement incentive program. We don't call it early retirement anymore because there's no end date on it. We'll talk about that a little bit when we get down to the Medicare eligible provisions. And it is intended to allow the board and the administration to have as much flexibility as possible for budget reductions and the orderly reduction and or departure of staff. We're not in a situation where we're in a budget reduction situation for staff, so ours is really for an orderly departure of staff. And it allows the board and the administration then to know as early as possible the departure of staff, so to plan for those, to get those filled and provide adequate time for replacing the positions, especially hard to fill positions. The code does require that employees reach a minimum age of 55 by the retirement effective date, and that's June 30th. That's one of the things that we did change. The retirement has to happen by June 30th, and age 55 has to happen by June 30th. The policy had been written by the next school year, which is not actually allowed. And I noticed there were still a couple of references to that, so we're going to get that changed before the next meeting for approval. And then it used to be an early retirement program, which said that after age 65, it no longer applied. There was a age discrimination lawsuit in Des Moines about 10 years ago that was successful. So now it's just a retirement incentive. And so there's a minimum age, but not a maximum age. And as long as all statutory requirements are met, we can pay for that out of the management levy, out of property taxes. The proposed plan for fiscal year 19, or for 18-19, for those retiring in 18-19, but to be levied in 19-20, so it would be in next year's budget, is for full-time employees who have reached age 55 by June 30th and have worked for the district full-time for 10 continuous years. The plan allows for any employee to notify us by March 1st. And if they notify us by March 1st, they would receive a financial incentive of 15% of the employee's per diem salary for each day of unused sick leave up to a maximum of 165 days, and $411.86 a month towards district health through Medicare eligibility. One of the things that I did want to make sure we changed in the policy this year, it did say until age 65. It does need to say Medicare eligibility because that age discrimination. Right now, Medicare eligibility is age 65, but if it should change, we could find ourselves out of compliance with or in an age discrimination, even if it was 5 years after somebody retired. So we want to make sure that we get that changed to Medicare eligible. In addition, we're proposing this year that if the employees notify us by January 4th, they will receive an additional $15 per day of unused sick leave up to the maximum of 165 days. It is one of the changes we made the last 2 years, and we don't know why it changed 2 years ago, but the last 2 years ago, those dates were made the same. So there wasn't an enhanced incentive. As long as you let us know by the middle of February, you got both incentives. So we've changed it so that by January 4th, they get the enhanced incentive, but we moved it from February 15th to March 9th in case after the 1st of January, there are life circumstances that cause individuals who need to retire that didn't originally think they might, that they still have an option towards some of the benefits. So we tried to go both ends on that. I talked about Medicare eligible, I talked about the enhanced benefit. The only other change that we're suggesting is that most school districts do require that employees work the length of their contract or letter of employment. We have allowed in the past employees to retire mid-year. There's some question whether under the statute that's even correct because we levy the next year for that. But it also then doesn't allow for that orderly departure of staff. If we have a very critical position, I used a one-on-one associate, educational assistant as an example. If they give us 2 weeks notice, then there's internal processes for transferring, and so then there's a ripple effect that could happen throughout the buildings. If they're required to work through their letter of employment, then all that could happen and be done before the end of the school year so that we wouldn't interrupt services to students. Another example I like to think of, because it's near and dear to my heart, is our payroll person's pretty critical, and if they were just to give 2 weeks notice, that would be a very difficult position to fill and train. So ideally then we would know hopefully January 1st, and not that she's planning on retiring, I don't want to start any rumors, but she said I could use her as an example, that we'd have to get someone hired and to work with that hard-to-fill position for 2 to 3 months to get them properly trained so that we don't have any interruption. Because I've learned the one thing is you don't mess around with people's paychecks. So I'd be happy to answer any questions, or Ms. Reisner would.
I think one of the, just on a flip side, to be transparent on this, one of the directors had brought up the second side of that might be that some people start the year and they do that for the purpose of training someone else. So there is that we kind of talked about, but I think overall in the long run,
that was brought up in the context of a board or a school secretary, that it might be better to have someone start mid-year. However, the same process would apply. You could have someone hired by the 1st of April and have them work for 2 months, even the 1st of March, however fast they give us notice, and still have that training go on.
And I would imagine that we would give some leeway for health concerns. For instance, I know a couple of years back there was a teacher that retired because of a health concern.
Right. So
mid-year.
that when it's a health concern, there's other mechanisms. First of all, they're going to have paid sick leave. That would certainly kick in most part. It would affect. It could affect then that financial compensation piece, but it would still provide them with their $411.86 a month for insurance till age to Medicare eligible, which is the largest part of this package. But also, even if they were out of sick leave, if it was a long-term medical thing, there are mechanisms to come for unpaid leave of absence that wouldn't affect that retirement date. It would just be something the board would approve. So we've thought about that as well. Thank you.
So I'm supportive of this in concept. I guess my one question is, being policy, is there a reason why we don't just use specific dates, like for January 1st or the first meeting in March, instead of having exact dates that we have to update every year? Wouldn't that provide more, I guess, assurance to staff that they know, okay, this is when I need to get stuff in?
And one of the reasons is we wanted to wait till Ms. Reisner was on board to go through this. Actually, I've had some conversations with legal counsel. Very, very few districts actually have this in board policy, and he actually recommends that it not be in board policy, that it is just an early retirement plan that is approved annually by the board. Having it in board policy kind of implies that it's something that continues and that is a promise in future years, even though you review it each year. His preference would be to get it out of board policy, but because of we want to give employees as much notice, as we're still about 2 weeks behind where we normally are on this. We usually get it approved at the end of July, and we don't usually bring it for discussion and then action. So we decided not to do that this year, but that would be a recommendation for next year. And I agree. I think the dates, keeping the dates consistent makes a lot of sense.
Okay, great.
So when you bring it back for a vote, we could have bring it back for approving for the policy, but then also a recommendation for you to explore removing it from board policy and making it
right.
separate.
I think we'd work that through the policy committee, was my thought.
Okay.
Chris, I understand that, in the changes in Chapter 20 that the legislature passed a little over 18 months ago, one of the things that was prohibited from contract negotiations or anything is retirement plans. The board has full authority to make changes in that area under the current law. But with that said, have we talked to the teachers and specifically the Ames Education Association to get feedback regarding this particular change and how they feel about it? Because we went through great lengths, a year and a half ago when the law changed quickly, and our board at the time scurried within a matter of hours to approve their contract for 2 years to give them assurances.
So retirement plans prior were a permissive subject to bargaining. Ours is not in our contract. There was a UNI decision, and that's where this, having it in board policy and whether it's a promise, and that the UNI decision was that because the board because it was just being automatically renewed and it wasn't going for action like through the Board of Regents, that it became a promise. So it's not part of our contract. Nothing other than the earlier date, which goes back to what it was 2 years ago. None of the changes affect the teachers' union. They have to work their contract anyway, unless it is a severe health issue that they get a pay or they get a leave.
But my question is, have we gotten some feedback from them regarding this change?
No, I don't think we've ever done that. So.
Okay. Well, I think we should.
Okay.
You know, at least reach out to their representative just to see if they have a question before our next meeting.
I'm back in the office on Wednesday. I will send it to Eileen Sullivan and see what she thinks.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions for Chris on this item? So we will look for this to come back as an action item on our next agenda.
Yes.
That's what I'm hearing. And then also what I've taken from it is that our policy committee, if you want to take a look at that in terms of making a recommendation to us. So thank you. Any public comments on the retirement incentive? Seeing none, we will go ahead and go to discussion item 6 on the agenda, closing open enrollment options. Superintendent Reisner.
So there has
One copy for each of us.
Yeah. This year there's been an increase, pretty significant increase in our enrollment over really, I think the last 3 weeks is when we've really seen the numbers go up. And so we're looking at having the board take action to close certain areas around the enrollment. And I really want to, I want you to understand how difficult this issue is. It's one that I inherited and fundamentally have some difficulty around the way, I guess, that we are doing enrollment overall. And so one of my goals is always to have the fewest amount of transitions for our students as we can. We know that kids, the more they transition, the more difficult it is for them. And so one of the things that I want the board to consider as we move forward in some work sessions is how do we look at different ways of approaching open enrollment and neighborhood schools. So I have some thoughts on that as we go forward, and I've been collecting some data so that we can look at how we address this issue overall, because it's not a popular decision, nor is it one that I'm super excited to make when we have to tell a parent that moved into the district and moved into an area school that they can't go to that school because it's full. That's a difficult thing for me to explain to parents. So having said that, I think there's some other ways that we can approach it in the future, but we are here and now 2 weeks away from school, and we have some areas that are full across the district. So we did hire a kindergarten teacher to alleviate some high numbers at fellows. So we have been shifting some open enrollment students that were at Meeker over to fellows for this year. And those would be students who did not have another sibling that was open enrolled in the building. And so the proposal, really, it will come back to you for action. So I wanted to go down to the bottom of the first page where it says the administration would like the board to approve closing open enrollment at Fellows Elementary. And I really want that to say grades 1 through 5. So if we bring this back, or when we bring this back for an action, that will be corrected, because like I said, we did hire a kindergarten teacher at Fellows, so there are openings there. The difficulty we have in adding teachers at this point is we have specialists as well, so their contracts have to be completely redone, and we'd have to add, within their schedules, we'd have to add additional specialists. So it's a balancing game right now, and we're trying to get through this year and then address the issues. One of the other points that I want to make as we go forward and look at how we do this enrollment process is looking through an equity lens. So how do we structure that enrollment process and structure our buildings in a way that really gets to the equity piece, and how we bring all kids together at an earlier age, and I'll bring some samples of some other districts that have done a very good job at that. So that being said, that proposal would be to close for open enrollment fellows grades 1 through 5, Mitchell grade 3, district-wide grade 5, and district-wide special education K-12.
What about third grade?
I'm sorry?
Third grade? There was something about district-wide third grade, no?
That's not what it says on here.
Okay.
That's what it says.
Oh, it looks like, I'm sorry, close Mitchell altogether.
Okay.
So when you say open enrollment, you're saying I want to make sure that I'm understanding. When you say open enrollment, you're saying anyone open enrolling into our district that would be allowed to go to these places. But it still would allow, if someone moves into that neighborhood or lives there and we don't know they're planning on going to that school, it hopefully allows them the opportunity to go to that school.
Correct.
Is that okay? And to be clear, when someone open enrolls into our school, do they get to choose which elementary school they go to?
The law says no, that we don't have to allow them to choose. I think that we've probably done a combination of both. If there's room, we allow them to choose. If there's not, then we put them at a different school.
Maybe it'd help the board, the deadline for regular open enrollment is gone.
Right.
I mean, that was March 1st.
Good point.
So what we have at this point is what we call continuous open enrollment. So these are students who were our students and who have since left and moved to another district and want to continue in our district. So that's what's open enrollment's happening now. 1 through 5, or 1 through 12 actually, and then kindergarten has a September 1st deadline for open enrollment.
So if I lived in Ames in one of the boundaries of one of the elementary schools, and I moved away, but I still planned on having my child go to the elementary school that they were attending when I lived in that area, if I have not completed that paperwork and this were to be approved, if I was at Mitchell or Fellows 1st through 5th, I would not have that approved.
You would have the option.
Assuming this were to pass.
Right, you'd have the option to go to one of the other
To one of the other
elementaries.
elementary schools. Okay.
So I guess I have one question for two audiences. First, Superintendent Reisner, this is different, I guess, operating than we've experienced in the past. Is there a reason why you feel this should come to the board for approval as far as who can come and who can go? And then secondly, for the whole board, what would we like to see, I guess, going forward?
Sure. So Chris and Barb that do enrollment shared with me that the board has to take action to officially close a building or a grade level per law. So that's why it's coming to the board at this point. And my understanding is that the enrollment hasn't been this high in the last few years. So our enrollment has really ballooned in the last 3 weeks.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, under the open enrollment law, in order for us to close not only a building but a grade even, the board has to take action on those things. And again, we're not voting on anything tonight. You're just throwing this out, letting us chew on this for a couple of weeks. And so some of this proposal may change, may get tweaked between now and then.
Very true.
Okay.
Yep. And I'll keep you posted too on that.
One of the things I'm seeing, and a question as I'm trying to mull this over in my head, one of the questions I asked Superintendent Reisner earlier today was capacity and how we define capacity, because I think there's two ways. There's capacity of our current staffing structure right now, and there's capacity at our buildings. Because if I look at this and see, and I'll just say the first one that's on the list, Edwards is a 3-section building, but their 3rd grade only has 2 sections. So there's an empty classroom in the kindergarten 1st grade wing, there's 2 empty classrooms in the 2nd, 3rd grade wing, and there's 1 empty classroom in the 4th, 5th. So in terms of capacity, we're looking at staffing capacity with
So
the
you're right, this is
specialties,
very confusing.
but not capacity.
On the left side, the numbers on the left are last year. So we had 2 sections at 3rd grade last year. This year we have 3.
Okay, so under the 17, 18,
Yes.
3, 3, 2. So there's 2 sections of 2nd grade at Edwards,
Yes.
not.
I wanted to make sure I clarified that,
Thank you
yes.
very much. Or is
It's the
that
other way.
17, 18, and what's over
It's the
here
other
is
way around.
18, 19? Yes, so the other way. So last year, we had 2
Thank you.
sections in 2nd grade. Now we have 2 sections in 3rd grade. So I just wanted to point that out to the public,
2
because when I
sections,
hear
okay.
capacity, that can mean 2 different things, as well as to the board. And so then how we wrap our minds around that when we talk.
Right, because the question about bubble, those bubble
Yes.
rooms. So one of the things that I'm coming into, we need to decide what's our overall capacity, overall. And then we need to look at what does that look like then with each building. But I think that the enrollment is much higher than we anticipated it being, probably, even mid-year. So that's one of the challenges that now we're facing. But I think if we intend to fill those bubble rooms, then we need to come up with what is our capacity per building. And Jerry and I have talked about, now where do we look at the expansions that need to happen and how we do that. In addition to maybe there's some ways we look at enrollment differently.
And Luke, you asked a good question, like what us as a board would like to see. When I saw 5 kindergartens at Fellows, I thought, holy smokes, that's a lot of littles. So it's a lot of like going through lunch, going through specials. I mean, that's a lot of, we talk about capacity, space capacity, but there's human capacity, right? That what a principal can take, what an art teacher can take, there's that piece too, right? And I was thinking, and they're not small classes. If they're 19 each, they're a pretty good size classroom. So I'm welcoming any idea that we have, just because having worked at Fellows, I know that mid-year we could get 20 students mid-year. I don't know, I'm not exaggerating. I mean, we could get lots of students coming in mid, and I'm sure that's the same at other schools. So I worry about that piece too, that what are we doing with those students? And my question is, that, so the ones that they're full, so not even people that moved next door will be able to get in the building, right?
Correct.
So those grades, for all of those schools that the grade is full, they will have to go somewhere else.
And I want to be clear, when we say full, that's a number we are setting. So what full means is whatever we have determined full means.
Okay,
I've been pretty public in terms of what I believe about class size, and 25 kindergartners or 26 is not something I'm very comfortable with. So that number of 25, I would hope we would have some discussions as the year goes on about what does full mean. That's our number that we set. I don't know if Chris, was that set as a board? You might know the history, or
I think it's just been a number that's been put into
Okay,
this form
sure.
to indicate
Yeah.
full. I don't
I
believe
think
there's
it
ever
was
been
in board
forward.
policy at one
Well,
point.
one of the things
It
I'd
was
like to
taken
point
out.
out is, today's the 13th, school starts in 10 days. We're talking about numbers here, and some of these students may not show up. Let's be realistic about that. And our official head count is until several weeks after that. So, you know, let's just wait and see who shows up, first of all, on the 23rd. And then we can really go from there and see, you know, where the pressure is, and you will adapt.
Yeah, and I think one of the concerns that I have, and I totally appreciate that approach, because that is very true. However, these are not numbers to me, these are kids.
Oh, of course.
And so for me, 76 kids or 72 kids doesn't matter. That's each one individually is a kid. And so when I have to talk to a parent and tell them why they moved into that neighborhood school and can't go there, even though they live right across the street, that's a kid to me.
I've been that parent.
Yeah, I know, and I don't want
when I
to.
moved here.
I want us to have a
And
plan.
I understand, so.
I want us to have a long-term plan to fix this, and
And I-
not to be in that let's wait and see who shows up game. I really want us to have a well-thought-out plan.
Oh, no, I appreciate the proactive, you know, looking forward to it. But I was just saying, for our immediate situation that you inherited.
Yes.
You know, give it 10 days, you know, let's kind of
I'm
see
hoping.
who shows up, yeah.
And Ms. Reinsner, I like the point that you brought about what we think, what we create the full, right? Like, we determine what full is. And because I hear over time, all these years I've heard that the teachers 25, 26, 27 in a classroom, and like, it's just too much, right? So it would be a good thing for us to, at some point, address that. Like, what do we think is actually a good number for a teacher to make a difference?
And I also have to, you know, be very open to Louis about, you are right in that I haven't experienced enrollment at the beginning of the year in Ames. So I know that there are college students that move in and move out, and so that's a new world to me too. So I appreciate the feedback in terms of, let's wait and see what happens.
Now, what we're talking about here is about closing open enrollment.
Correct.
As we said, the numbers are higher this year than we've seen. Is that actually coming from open enrollment, though, or is that coming from just more people in Ames? Do you have a feel there, or?
What I feel is it's a combination. It's definitely a combination of both right now. So we might get a couple open enrollment kids, and then all of a sudden Barb will get a couple that have moved in. And so I think it's been a tough spot for her, because what's worked in the past is not working as well right now.
So yeah, I would definitely support in this next year having some work sessions to think through, is this a pattern that we're going to keep seeing, and how do we address it, and how do we deal with that?
And I think during those work sessions, it'll be important to bring our directors and our principals in to talk about kind of what that looks like, and
try to understand why it's happening too.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
I think one of the things I'll just share with the board is, I know, and I don't know how long ago it was, but there was a consultant hired to try to make an educated guess for our district on what our growth patterns would look like. It's really difficult to anticipate it. And Chris, maybe that's what you were going to say. I think the other thing, just for the public to be aware, our budget is set by, when we talk about this October 10th count date, so October 10th last year, what our count date was then, that's the money we have for spending on staffing, but the piece of paper that's in front of you. And I think that's always important to think about, because you say, well, let's add more teachers, let's add more teachers. Yes, that sounds like a great idea, but you need to understand that our budget is based on a number that is almost 9 or 10 months ago. So it really puts the board and the administration in a really tricky situation, so.
Yep,
Yeah,
very
so, and
true.
I appreciate the transparency of this and really making the public aware of the tough things that you're having to think through for our kids, because each one of these they're kids and families, so.
Yeah, and I really do appreciate the families that have reached out to me. I spent Saturday making some phone calls and talking with some parents, and I really, really appreciated their feedback and their willingness to kind of look at the problem and become part of helping with the solution, so.
I just wanted to, you had asked a question about the bubble classrooms, and I just wanted to make a comment on that so that we don't leave any misunderstanding in the public. Yes, Edwards has all of its bubble classrooms. However, one of the things that makes it difficult this close to school is Edwards, Mitchell, and Sawyer share art, music, and PE. So if you added those 4 classrooms to Edwards, then you have to add specials because the teachers' schedules are full. They don't have enough time in the day to meet the schedules. So I didn't want to leave the impression that we've got all these classrooms that we could keep accepting people, and finding art, music, PE at this point is more difficult than, say, finding a kindergarten teacher per se. So I just wanted everybody to understand that piece falls into it as well.
And I think if memory serves me correct, we were watching the Edwards kindergarten. This is just an example, Edwards kindergarten. It was only at 2, the last number I saw, but the numbers must have warranted a 3rd section. So we have made some adjustments. It's just 10 days prior to the start of school, we're feeling like
pressure's on.
the ticker's on, and we need to settle in.
Yep.
So
But, sorry.
a question I got from somebody in the community over the weekend was, let's just take any of the elementaries, if there were spaces available and people were moving in over the summer and also people were asking for open enrollment over the summer, how do those spaces get allocated? Is it somehow first come, first serve, or?
I can't be 100% sure, but I believe it is. I think that's, whoever's doing the registration, they're trying to put the kids in the system, assign them a building, and so that's how it's been in the past. Because one of the things we thought about was, or one of the things I, simply said was, well, could we move all of our open enrollment kids kind of over here to the side, and then we look at our neighborhood kids, get them assigned to their building, and then add those in. But it's too late this year to do something like that, so.
I would like to just add, I appreciate all of the conversation that's come from the board. I thought these were really good questions. This has been an issue, this has been an ongoing issue that we've been needing to address. And so I understand you've inherited this situation, and I think because of that, and I think we all understand that, I'm inclined to give you what you say you need. I'm curious about how long this moratorium would be in effect for. If we moved forward, how long, is it a year? What are you thinking?
My understanding is it's revisited yearly, so it would be this year.
Okay, and then my other concern is about particularly the special ed, K through 12. I know that I understand those services are in demand and certainly restricted, but I also understand that certain families need those. And so I'm curious if there is a way to perhaps have some flexibility for a hard case scenario, or just if there is any way to kind of have a general moratorium but still leave some flexibility for a serious situation.
Yes, good point. So it does say on the proposal, special education director based on availability at individual grades and individual programs. So I think there would be some leeway on the director being able to.
So the director would have the authority to.
It would be Darcy who made the decision then? It wouldn't be the superintendent?
Darcy.
Okay.
Another thing to keep in mind on special ed, there's 2 ways that students that don't live in Ames come to us in special ed. One is open enrollment, which is parent choice, and another is tuitioned in, which is district choice. So for instance, if Gilbert doesn't have a program that Ames does, that's a different situation. We still have to watch our numbers and make sure that we're not going over the maximums allowed on rosters. But, so we're talking about parent choice on open enrollment versus not having a program in another school district.
And those students are not on the open enrollment number?
The tuition are not. Open enrollment are.
Okay, okay.
My other question is, and perhaps maybe Jerry can answer it, I don't know, maybe somebody can answer it. We just passed a bond to put on extensions on like I can't remember, 2 or 3 elementaries. I mean, so what does that do to these numbers?
So the directors do have microphones over there. I did not.
Jerry,
know
you're
that
out
till
on
this
camera
now.
though.
I don't remember them saying that they would be
Interest. I've been like answering for them, not knowing they had microphones over there.
Go ahead.
Could you repeat the question? I didn't quite catch that.
So the question was, we just passed a bond for $5 million to add additions onto some of the elementary schools because of the crowding. And so where are we in that process, and how will that process impact the problem we're discussing today?
So in anticipation of the bond passing successfully, I got out in front of getting the design for the additions of 6 classrooms at Edwards Elementary. That was based on the information I had at the time. So we had completed the design, and prior to accepting that design and putting it out for bid, we decided not to. So that one's shelved and ready to go. It'll take me a couple weeks to get that pulled off of the shelf, dust it off, change some dates, and we can go move forward with that. With Meeker and Mitchell, or the other 2 schools, we'll still need to be able to go through a design process in order to be able to make those happen. Meeker should be pretty simple, similar to what Edwards would be, but I need a couple or 3 months to be able to do the design, to get the documents ready for that particular project. If we were going to do that, I'd like to be able to have that time, and then to be able to plan it for bidding in like December or January. In that case, then we could get construction going in the spring and then have a chance to be able to open up in the fall on just those 2. Mitchell's a little bit more complicated, so it'd need more design. I'd need to be authorization or direction to be able to move forward with Mitchell like right now. And we'd have to see how that works, because it's going to take a little bit more complicated to be able to find the right addition and get the right rooms, because they're kind of stressed for some space at that building.
And to just, thank you, Jerry, to bring it back to Jenny, I guess what I'm understanding is it's not necessarily a space issue, but a staffing capacity issue. And so even with the addition of these classrooms, we're still kind of in the same position that we not only now need additional teaching staff, but we need additional special staff. Is that right?
That's correct.
And do we have money for that?
Well, I could let Chris answer this.
So Jerry's talking about a year from now. So that would be under next year's budget. So that would be something the board would consider with next year's.
So we'll know those numbers September 10th?
October 1st is the official count date. It's usually the end of October before everything shakes out at the state level and every school merges their numbers and so forth. So it's usually towards the end of October.
So Jerry, you're ready to go with Edwards. So that's ready to go, right? It sounded like you said you need 2-3 months to put things together for Meeker.
Yes.
But you need more like 6 or 7 months to prepare for Mitchell.
3 or 4.
Oh, that's all?
Yeah.
Okay. Is it feasible in your mind that if you have that lead time, could we do 2 or even 3 of those projects next summer, even if we're moving dirt for the high school? I know they're completely separate projects, but we did go to the community and ask them for $5 million to do these additions. And they said yes.
There's a lot of things that are possible, but I think practically speaking, we want to stagger Mitchell and Meeker because of the summer lunch program.
Okay.
So I want to be able to, we can do 2 at one time, but then I want to stagger the third one just in order to be able to keep that program running.
Sure. Okay. Thanks.
Jerry, quick question. Were the other buildings Sawyer and Fellows, were they built to add to them?
Fellows is maxed out right now. That we have maxed out. Sawyer is a 3-section, so we have the ability to add on to that, yes.
But like building-wise, right? Because I know Fellows is maxed out. I think the assistant principal is in a closet. That's his office, right? So I wasn't quite thinking about classroom, but I was thinking of like add additional space for any of those if Sawyer needs it.
I think we could, yeah, pretty much we'd look at being able to add classroom space at Sawyer.
Okay.
That's what we'd want to try to do, yeah.
Thank you.
So it sounds like probably we need to be starting to talk about this much sooner than later with a work session very soon.
Yep.
So that we know, do we need to be doing these things, right? So.
Yeah, I had it on the calendar to start talking about it in October so that we could have data from this year, what it looks like by October, and then also some data I'm collecting from other districts who have reconfigured or done maybe a different approach.
And we could start doing that simultaneously, Jerry getting some things off the shelf.
Absolutely,
okay.
Yeah.
I think it would also be helpful to have comparative data, and we talked about this a little bit of, okay, so this is what we look like in 2018, but what was it 2017 on August 13th? What was it 2016? As we talk about these differences, just so we have that trend in mind.
Exactly.
That's what it looks like. So we had discussed that, and I just wanted to share with the board that we thought that would be helpful for us to have that information.
Right, and we do have the numbers for open enroll, so we can see that last year there were 338 and now there are 399. So we can go back and there's been an increase every year.
And I can put it into a nice chart and we'll work on that.
And it'd be good to see it split down to each classroom or grade level at each building. Because I mean, once you let an open enroll student into a school, you don't want to take them out either. So they're moving through the school, and we need to see that.
Yeah. Exactly.
And we need to think that all these children will be funneled into the middle school, right? The middle school and then the high school, and we're building a new high school, but we're not necessarily building a new middle school, right? But the middle school you can add to it.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments on this discussion item? Great discussion. Thank you for all the different thoughts on it. Any comments from the public? See none, we will go ahead and move to the public forum, and Helen Blitfit just signed up to speak.
Helen Blitfitch, 3300 Eisenhower Avenue, Ames. Good evening. I just wanted to share something really positive with the board for a change. And it was an experience that myself and several parents had this last week. Mary Morton, one of our teachers on special assignments, did a dyslexia professional development day last Tuesday. And to start today, she invited parents and students who had, parents of students with dyslexia and students with dyslexia to be on a panel. To just help those teachers understand what dyslexia is like from a parent perspective and a student perspective, tell our story and the struggles that we've had and faced. After we went through our stories, they had an opportunity to ask us all questions, and that was a really positive experience. It was supposed to be a 45-minute session. It turned out to be 2 hours, so you can see that the teachers were really engaged, the parents were engaged, and it was a really good conversation that we all had. I've been an advocate for students with dyslexia for 8 years in this district, and I would have to say that that was by far the most meaningful experience I've had ever, and it was really positive. I truly believe that it was a turning point for our district, and I look forward to working with other members in the district, and trying to move this process forward and help all students, not just those with dyslexia, but any struggling readers. And I also wanted to give kudos to those teachers that turned up that day. They came in the summer, they didn't have, taking time away from their families. It really warmed my heart to actually see them there, and I can't tell you how much I appreciated it, and so did those other parents. And the kids too, they didn't speak too much, but it was a really good experience for us all, so I just wanted to let them know and thank them.
Great, thank you very much for sharing, Helen, appreciate that. All right, consent items.
Minutes from the meetings held, or the meeting held July 23rd, personnel report, open enrollment, contracts, string beans performance group. That's at Northwood, by the way. That was, I had to laugh while saying that. ATW Training Solutions, Youth and Shelter Services.
Move approval of consent.
Second.
Moved by Deerdorf, seconded by Benkin. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Passes 6-0. No action items this evening, so any items from the board?
I just want to do a quick follow-up to what Helen was saying. I was part of that panel as well, and it was wonderful. I cannot thank those teachers enough. They even took their time to write a thank you note to us, and it was mailed to us to our home, and each had a very meaningful message and saying that they learned a lot. So it was really nice to all be one, because we were talking about and it's not just about dyslexic students, it's about students that struggle with reading, spelling, writing. It was very meaningful, and I cried a couple of times, and I don't think I was the only one. There was not a dry eye in that house. No. So yeah, thank you, Helen, for saying something.
Items from the staff.
One of the things I wanted to share was the back to school supply handout that I saw a couple of our board members there, and I was in awe. What an amazing event. So it was a blast to get to meet students and families, and just a really great event. So the Ames, the town and community of Ames should be really proud of that. I wanted to share with the board that I met with Katie Swalwell today. I hope I said that right, Swalwell. So Amy and I met with Katie today, and Amy is our new Director of Curriculum and Instruction. And we kind of looked at where we are, where we've been, and how we might maybe tweak the training that we've been doing around cultural competencies as we move forward. And so we had some really great discussion and dialogue, and we are going to meet again on Sunday and have Daniel Skype in, so we can, I think we're going to realign our plan for this year, because Amy and I have had an opportunity to observe some different groups, and talk, I guess, with teachers and teacher leaders, and then the administrative team. And so we really want to make this work be the plate we eat off of. And I use that that's actually a phrase that Daniel uses, and so we want it to be very integrated in everything we do. And so we kind of need to go back to the drawing board and realign all the work that we're doing as a district around this work. So I'm excited to see Daniel on Sunday and get an opportunity to kind of look at that as a whole. Also, you spoke about the Little Cyclones Teacher Academy. I was in awe. What an amazing event, and tons of work for those people that not only presented, but the organization that goes into an event like that. And so just a fabulous job by our teacher leaders to put that event on. I was really, really amazed and proud. So, and then I wanted to share the principals met with Amy and I this week, and man, it turned into a long meeting, but a great one. And one of the areas that we spent some time talking about was data and access to data, and what we collect, what we may not collect, how we move forward to give access to the data at the building levels, access to by our teachers. They need to have that data, be able to work with it, the principals, the directors, so just across the whole system, revisioning kind of how we use data and how we access it. So a lot more discussions around that coming up, but I know it's something that the board has talked to me a little bit about as well. So I wanted to share with you that. So it's been busy.
And it's going to get busier.
I know. I can't wait. School's going to start. I'm so excited.
Our new
Ready.
staff officially comes this week, and then our teacher breakfast next Monday morning on the 20th.
Yep, our kickoff is Monday morning, and we have a great agenda plan, so it should be great.
Great. Kids on Thursday.
Kids on Thursday.
We'll be busy.
Yay.
Good. Anything on the board planning calendar that you want to highlight?
Yes, I'm wondering if the next meeting, which is on the 27th, is that correct? If we could do another work session. And I wanted to do, the work session that we would do would be with Harry, and help me with his last name.
Hilgenthal.
Hilgenthal.
Sorry, Haugenthal.
Haugenthal. Harry. So we wanted to do some work with Harry. I know we've talked individually, most of the board members, about just kind of when you get a new superintendent or new board members, it's good to come back and revision kind of what are our roles as board members and go through what are our operating procedures and just kind of revisit that. That would help me, I know, and so I'm hoping that that would be helpful to everyone. And then as we move into September, I'd want to have one more in September, and I want us to kind of revisit our board goals at that point, and then hopefully we can set some goals that you might have of me. So I think until we set those board goals, it's hard to kind of go into that what do you expect of me piece. So if that sounds okay, we could maybe do that on the 27th. I'm waiting to hear back from Harry to make sure that that's a go with him.
Are you thinking 5:30 or 6:30?
I was thinking the board work session is the 27th is August is a board meeting. So I was thinking 5, would that not work?
Yes, it would work. I just
Okay.
have time.
Okay. So I'd be thinking 5, that'd give us an hour and a half, hour and 20 minutes to work with him.
And just so the board is aware, the work that we've done thus far on our priorities, I did share that.
Yep.
And we have had some initial discussions with it, so she has some background knowledge.
And Monique reshared it, thank you. I kind of got inundated for a short time, so I misplaced it. So Monique reshared it, I appreciate that.
Good.
One question I have about the work session is, to protect community members' time like we had today, what if we did work session after the meeting so that if we do run over with a good discussion, we're not causing issues for members that have come to speak, things like that, you know? What's your thought on that?
I would only anticipate a challenge if we have a heavy agenda, what time we might start that work session as it goes into the evening. I certainly understand it and desiring to be sensitive to the public's time, as we saw tonight.
Yeah, Alan, I'm glad you brought that up, because a work session kind of tends to lend itself to us brainstorming and getting into discussions, and it's hard to put a limit on that. So I would rather see the reverse of trying to do our best to limit our business that we have to get done as we're putting together agenda, and do the work session afterwards. Now, I've also been one to say, well, I don't want to be here all night, and we don't start, after a certain period of time, we're not thinking straight. But I would rather see the workshop after the actual board meeting itself.
I prefer it before for a variety of reasons. So maybe if we can try it one more time, I will volunteer to be in charge of the time. I guarantee we will not run over. We'll even have time for a bathroom break. I'll volunteer to be the timer.
And the other option is to do it on a different day, do our work session on a different day.
Alternate. One time we do it before, one time we do it after.
That seems fair.
One time we do, And I think also the concern for members of the public that want to come to meetings, that want to be involved or come to the workshop and observe what we're discussing in those situations. Sometimes that's easier for them to do after a meeting.
I volunteer to be the timer for the late meetings too.
We'll be adding a position to the board, the official
Stop timekeeper.
So how about if it's all right, we'll keep the next one at 5 o'clock and adjust as we go and assess how we are doing and how Director Bankin's doing in keeping us on task. All right. I will entertain a motion for adjourning.
I move we adjourn.
Second?
Closed session.
So, whoa.
Oh my gosh,
sorry.
we can't, I'm so sorry.
I will
Yep,
actually,
I just
move.
give her, hold on just a
Okay,
second.
go
I
ahead.
want to, because many of the public may not have been here, we have amended the agenda at the beginning of our official starting time at 5:30, and so that this motion will reflect that.
Correct. So, I move the board go into closed session as provided in section 21.5, section 1A, to review and discuss records which are required or authorized by state or federal law to be kept confidential or to be kept confidential as a condition for that government's body's possession or continued receipt of federal funds.
I second.
Moved by Rosser, seconded by Beerbaum. We will vote on roll call.
Rosser, aye.
Bankin, aye.
Deirdre, aye.
Franz and I.
Beerbaum, aye.
Colton, aye.
Passes 6-0. We will enter into closed session.